Good morning, students. Uh, Now, in our previous classes, welcome to you all, and resuming this class again after your test. And I hope that your test would have been very good. And let's see your performance, what the performance is coming, and you have done that will come in the result. Okay, uh, students, first in previous classes I have taught you about the expansion, rise and expansion of the Islam, how the Islam now took birth and originated, and after the birth of the Muhammad Sahib, I have already Prophet Muhammad who born, and then after his early life, how his early life was the very full of struggle and full of struggle, and now how he got the opportunity, the having the his union with union or the marriage. After marriage, he got the exposures, and he had a lots. He had many of the opportunity to having the contact with the Jews and the Christians during his on the march of the Syria. Understand? Or then after he now learned a lot of knowledge about the other religion. Understand? And after that, the Prophet Muhammad decided to introduce a new religion. Understand? So he went in the cave, or he was a very thoughtful man right from his beginning. I have already mentioned, very thoughtful. Understand? Or then he just got a revelation, got through the angels. He got the message from the Allah, from the Supreme Being. Understand? And then after, he decided to form a new religion. Understand? So now, students, I have mentioned a lot about this, about the Prophet Muhammad and the origin of the Islam. Second thing is that now we are going to study here around the 612, Muhammad declared himself. Now, when the 612, he declared himself to be the messenger. Messenger means the Rasul. Messenger. Who are they called the messenger? Messenger were called as the Rasul. The Prophet Muhammad declared himself as the Rasul and the God. Rasul of the God means he is the Rasul, means Prophet Muhammad was appointed as a messenger of the Allah on this earth. Understand? So he was called as known as the Rasul, who had been commanded to preach that Allah alone. Now he had been commanded, he had been given the command by the Allah. Means the Allah has ordered him that he had been given the command by the Allah that alone should be worshipped. Means the Allah alone should be the worship on this earth. Allah alone should be the worship. Now, and this message had been commanded to the Prophet Muhammad. Understand? Prophet Muhammad had been commanded the message that he would have to be the teacher and the priest the people. Understand about that Allah alone should be the worship, and the worship involved the simple rituals. Now, how the Allah will be the worship? The question is that now Allah will be the worship through the rituals. What the rituals? Such as the daily prayers. Daily prayers, that is called as the salat. The daily prayers is known as a salat. The Allah would be the every Muslim, each and every Muslim has to follow the certain instruction given by the Allah, and this instruction was given by the Prophet Muhammad. Understand? And the Allah, and this is the daily prayer salat, the moral principle, and each Muslim has to be the follow, and has to has to be the follow the certain morals, has to be the practice the certain morals in the every principles, such as the distributing alms, distributing alms, and abstaining from the theft. They have to be the abstaining from the theft. Every Muslims had to distribute the alms to the poor and the needy, and as well as and the abstain from the thieving or thefts. And moreover, Muhammad was to find community of believers. Now he wanted the expansion of the Islam. So the Prophet Muhammad had to now combine and had to organize a community, understand, community of the believers, to make this religion more forceful and the more commanding and more forceful. So the community of believers, they were known as the Ummah. The community of believers is called as the Ummah. And moreover, community of the believers called as the Ummah. Prophet Muhammad, who was the messenger, is known as the Rasul. Messenger is known as the Rasul, and the daily prayer is called as the Salat. Everyday prayer is called prayer is called as the Salat. And the Prophet Muhammad believers the Ummah and bound by a common set of the religious beliefs. And this community was bounded. This community was organized by the a set of the religious teachings. You can say a set of the religious bond. This Ummah was now consolidated and bound by the set of the religious beliefs and the commanded religious belief. The community would bear witness to Shahada. This community will carry and the bear the Shahada and bear the Shahada, existence of the religion before the God. This community will carry on the Shahada. It will be the bear the witness of the religion, and moreover the existence of the religion before the God, as well as before the members of the others, and as well as before the members of the others religious community. Muhammad's message particularly appealed. Now this Muhammad message particularly appealed to the other religious communities. Why this was they carry the Shahada, became the Shahada, means the existence of the religion before the God and existence of the religion before the other communities. So that because of that, this community would now attract Islam, would attract the other community. Muhammad's messages particularly appeal to those Muhammad's message appealed to those Meccans who felt deprived of the grains. Now particularly Prophet Muhammad now driven or started his preachings or sermons before the believers, understand. So now particularly he could and his religion, the Islam, could attract the others, and particularly those Meccans who felt deprived of gains from the trade and religion. Those who were the deprived, those Meccans who were already deprived of the trade and as well as the religion, they wanted their new identity by joining the Islam, by joining this new religion, by joining this new faith and beliefs. And the Mecca felt deprived of the gains from religion and were looking for a new community identity. And many of the Meccans wanted those Meccans who had been deprived of the trade, and commerce, and they had no any religious identity, understand. So they wanted to form their own identity, a new identity, wanted to form a new identity, understand, new identity. That identity that will give them a new identity in the society or in this world. Understand? So now these were the community identity. Those who accepted the doctrines were called the Muslims, and those Meccans who now accepted these doctrines of the Islam, they began to be called as the Muslims. They are started to be called, and moreover, and they were promised salvation on the day of judgment, and ultimately they had been the promise that there shall be a day of the judgment. Day of the judgment in Qiyamah. This is the day of judgment is called as the Qiyamah. Qiyamah, day of judgment. On that day of judgment, they would achieve the salvation. Understand? On the day of Qiyamah. This day is called, day of judgment is called the Qiyamah, and a share of the resources of the community while on the earth. And what the share they had, now they had acquired from the resources. Okay, on that basis, their judgment would be done there. Whether they had accumulated a much and accumulated the much amidst the huge, so that will be the task will be taken. That account will be taken on the day of the judgment. How you have accumulated much by the making the sufferings, creating the sufferings to the poor and the sufferings to the needy. You have acquired the much, that on the day of judgment will be your task will be taken by the Allah. Understand? So this was the given, and this is called as the Qiyamah, day of judgment. The Muslims soon faced considerable opposition from affluent Meccans. Now we know that as the Prophet's Muhammad influence increased and spread in the Makkah, understand? So now the affluent class, the well-to-do class, they were very much afraid of this spread. Now they had this was a big, and this spread of the Islam was these principles. A spread of the principles of Islam now became a big and a great menace for them. Why? Because they were afraid. The Muslims soon faced a community. Why? The opposition from affluent Mecca, who took the offense to the rejections of their deities and founded a new religion, the threat to the status and the prosperity of Mecca. Now their deities were replaced, began to be replaced. So they were afraid that would now create a great menace for their trade and the prosperity of the Makkah, because the Meccan trade and prosperity was based on the pilgrims, on the deities, because it was the Makkah was a center of the deities, and many pilgrims from the different parts of the Arabs used to come there, used to gather there. Understand? For the visiting this pious place. So this if that would be affected by the new religion, offense to rejection of their deities, the new religion threat to the status and prosperity of the Mecca. So as a result, what happened in 622? Now this was a landmark in the history of the world, and this was a new era, beginning of the new Muslims era. From the 622, what happened? Muhammad was forced to migrate with. Now the Prophet Muhammad was forced to migrate with his followers to Medina. Understand? Now this affluent class of the Mecca were afraid. A great apprehension was spreading around. Understand? So the Meccan affluence class with the being afraid of these Meccans. Understand? The Prophet Muhammad was threatening to death. Understand? And he got the threats, many threats of the killings, threats of the assassinations. So that's why he migrated with ultimately Muhammad migrate with his followers to the Medina. a turning point in the history of the Islam. And this is migration from Mecca to the Medina. It was a turning point in the history of the Islam. This is the known as the turning point in the history of Islam, from his migration from Mecca to the Medina. Understand? Or this is the Mecca to Medina, or particularly the journey. This journey is the Muhammad's journey from Mecca, Hijrah. This journey is called as the Hijrah. And now was the turning point in the history of the Islam, with the year of this arrival of Medina marking the beginning of the Muslim calendar. And this migration is marked as a beginning of a Islamic calendar. This is the mark as the beginning of Islamic calendar. His migration from Mecca to Medina, understand, and beginning of the new Islamic calendar is the supposed. And moreover, the survival of the religion rests on the survival of a community of the believer. Now, one thing about that, this was the quite clear and quite obvious for the prophets that the survival of a community, no doubt, rests on the survival of the survival of the believers. Survival of the community has to be the consolidated internally and protected from the external dangers. These survivals, so that survival of the community, for the survival of the religion, survival of the community is the necessary. Understand? So that there is a ardent need and consolidated the internally protected from the external dangers. So that this community must be protected from internal and the external dangers. This community has to be protected from the external or internal dangers. Understand? So for that, what the steps the prophets Muhammad taken? For this, the prophets had to be take the steps to consolidations and the protection required political institutions such as states and the government, which are either inherent from the past. Now the one thing is that to give the protection, power and strength to the community, understand, the prophets thought that there must be a political institution and the political organization in the form of the state or in the form of the government, and state, and this and either inherited from the past, and this form of the government whether should be the form on the basis of the inherited past from the past traditions, whether either borrowed from the outside. This political system should be the borrowed from the outside and from the scratch. Understand? So this kind of the political institution was required for the protection of the community. The prophets Muhammad felt for the providing the protection to the Muslims, there must be a political institution in the form of the states and the government. Understand? So now here we are looking for this, whether should be the established, this system should be the borrowed, whether should be the inherited plus should be taken as an inheritance from the past, or it should be the taken scratch. In Medina, Muhammad created a political order from all three sources. Now the prophets Muhammad now set up a political institutions at the Medina and took the instances, took the help from the all three sources, inherited and from the outside, borrowed and as well as scratched. And this is the political form, and the three sources we gave, and now which gave his followers the protection and needed as well as the resolve. The city is a ongoing civil strife. So this political system now provided the protection to his believers, to his community men or the believers, and as well as this political system, and this system helped in resolving all the strifes existing within the community. Understand? So the Prophet Muhammad has a religious ideas and the views and principles, as well as he was in favor of the establishing or founding a political institution. Understand? He was in favor of the political institution, and moreover, civil the Ummah. And now we know that his believers community is was known as the Ummah. Ummah was converted into a wider community to include the polytheists and Jewish of Medina under the political leadership of Muhammad. So this Ummah was now open wider, and even though open for embracing or including even the Jews, of the Medina and polytheists of the Medina, those who were the believing in the multi-god system, multi-goddess, god and goddesses who believers, they were for them this religious, they now opened the arms for them, and even for the Jews they opened, and now leadership and the political leadership and brought under the political leadership of the prophets, and the Muhammad consolidated the faith for his followers by adding and the refining the rituals such as fasting, and ultimately the prophets Muhammad now added the refining the rituals fasting such as the fasting ethical principles. Fasting was also now added later on in this Islam. The fasting was also later on added and the Islam, and moreover the community survival on the agriculture and the trade, and this community and the Muslims survived on the trade and as well as the agriculture, moreover as well as alms tax zakat, the tax which was the meant for the religious collection, for the religious purposes, tax taken from the people and taken from the believers only. Understand? So, sorry, this is called as the zakat. This was known as zakat. There are the four kind of the taxes were taken during the Muslim states. Four: jizya, zakat, khams, and kharaj. Jizya, zakat, khams, and kharaj. The four kinds of the tax were. The zakat was jizya was taken from the Jimmi. Jimmi were non-believer, non-Muslims were called as the Jimmi by the Muslims. Jimmi. Understand? The jizya was taken from the Jimmi. Understand? Non-Muslims. And zakat was a religious tax. It was imposed and imposed on the Muslims only who believed in the Islam. Understand? For the religious growth and religious development, we can say, for the religious survival. Okay, survival of the religion, it was taken. And moreover, in addition, the Muslims organized the expedition raid, and for the acquiring the more wealth, financial strength, the Muslims now conducted and campaigned the raids. Raids were called as the Ghazo on Meccan Karma. Particularly, they targeted the Meccan Karma. Karma was what? Karma is what? Karma is the group of traders. Understand? Those who migrate and move from one market to the other market in the group. Understand? So they used to be called as the Karma. So now they targeted this group of the traders on the way, and particularly those who were migrating and moving from Mecca to the other markets, other places. So they were targeted, and moreover, these raids provoked the reaction from Meccans and caused a breach with the Jews of the Medina. And as a result, what happened? These raids now created the more tension between the Makkah and Medina. Understand? So these raids and particularly the Jewish communities were targeted, Understand? So this created a great strife between the Makkah and Medina traders. And after a series of battles, now the Prophet Muhammad was in process of fighting the battles. Understand? So now a series of battles he fought for the expansion of the Islam. Understand? So amongst that and the series of battles, Mecca was conquered ultimately. Prophet Muhammad, who had migrated in 622, Medina, now he wanted to conquer and recapture the Mecca. Understand? So now this he had to be the late fight many battles to acquire to capture over the Mecca. Understand? So ultimately he got the success to capture the Mecca and conquered. Muhammad's reputations as a religious preacher and the political leader, and the now Prophet Muhammad was becoming more and more gaining the more and more reputations all over the Arab, and more preacher and political leader spread far and wide. Far and wide, Prophet Muhammad now gained the reputations, and moreover Muhammad now insisted on conversion and the sole criteria for the membership of the community. Another thing is that he wanted to expansion of the religion or the Islam. So the Prophet Muhammad now emphasized on the conversion, on the forced conversion at the point of the sword. Now the many battles happened with non-Muslims, understand, or non-believers, understand. So during that course of the battle, particularly during that course of the battle, understand, the conversion was made. So large scale Muslims today, they are the converted. Even in our country, many of the Muslims are converted. If you go their background of their history, understand, historical background, so we shall find that they are the converted. Before they were Hindus, but forcibly they had been converted into the Islam. Understand? So now we can see that conversion was the main criteria for enhancing the membership. In the harsh conditions of the desert of the Arab, now in harsh condition, desert of the Arab attracted great value to strength and solidarity. Impressed by the Muhammad achievements, many tribes in this desert area, okay, many of the tribes, they joined the Prophet Muhammad, and particularly the Bedouins. About that I have taught you. Bedouins were the cattle rearers, herd rearers, pastoralists. They joined joined this new religion, joined the Islam. Bedouins became mostly Bedouins joined the community by converting to Islam themselves. Understand? They converted into the Islam, and Muhammad's alliance began to spread until they embraced the whole of the Arabia. And in this way, the Prophet Muhammad now continue his spread and started the alliance with the different communities and the Arab people, and particularly as long as the entire Arab now, so long the entire Arab came under his influence or under his religious influence. So now a religious influence. So we can see that the Muhammad alliance began to the spread until they embraced the whole of the Arabia. Medina became the administrative capital and capital of the emerging Islamic states. So the emerging Islamic state, Muhammad now spread it, and he set up the large Islamic states. Understand? Or the Medina became the capital of the new Islamic states. Medina. First, the Medina became the seat of administration of the Muslim or Islamic states under the Prophet Muhammad. Okay, and moreover, Medina became administrative capitals or emerging Islamic states with Mecca as a religious centers and as well as administrative the Mecca became the religious centers. Medina became the administrative centers. Understand, the two centers were here, and moreover, the Kaaba was the cleansed of the idols, and ultimately the Kaaba, where the idols, a large number of the idols were, this was the cleansed completely, rooted out, and the idols say, cleansed of the idols, as the Muslims were required to face the shrine when offering prayers. Understand? So when offering prayers, they required the shrines. So these idols were replaced from there and thrown away from there. And moreover, and the shrines, when the offerings, in short, a space of time, in the very short space of the time, Prophet Muhammad got the success and became able to unite the large part of the Arabia under this new faith. And the Prophet Muhammad was able to unite the larger part of the Arabia under a unified faith, under a strong faith. Understand, new faith. He brought all the Arabs people under, and now new faith, community and the states, and new community he formed, new state he formed, or the most of the Arabian peoples were brought under his command. And the early Islamic polity, and this was the early Islamic polity, remained a federation of Arab tribes. And in the beginning, what was the nature of the state? The Arab state was just like the federation of the different tribes. It means that the different tribal councils were there, and their adjournment or their or these confederations now with these confederations, a Arab states was on the basis of this confederation. At the adjournment of this confederation, an Arab states was now the form federal Arab tribes and clans for a long time, and then remained a federal Arab tribes and the clans for a long time. And the federation of these clans, different clans were, different clans and tribes were, understand, and these Arab state was based on these small tribals where they had the confederation, and if we had joined these confederations together, so the one Arab states was formed, one Arab governments was formed. Understand? So Arabian state was the Islamic state was formed. So we see that we have seen that how the Prophet Muhammad now got the success to uniting the Arab people. Ummah, you have seen that. Understand? So how the Ummah, what was the Ummah? These all things you should now learn and keep in the mind. Okay, that is the okay for this day. Understand? Thank you for attending the class.